Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Ninja Gaiden. In the last part, we continued on through the game, learning who the main villain was, meeting said villain, and then learning the fact that our father might still be alive. And now we're gonna go finish off the game in the game's last stage, Stage 6, which is the game's longest individual stage. Mostly due to plot, I admit, but it's also, in some regards, the hardest, in some regards, not. I think Stage 5 is an overall worse stage, but the bosses of Stage 6 on its own make it an entirely different beast. Not to say that this stage doesn't have annoying platforming, though it most certainly does. Ugh. It also, as you can tell, has quite the overload of enemies. This is the point where I think they just stopped caring and just started plastering enemies everywhere. Which, I guess, is a form of difficulty in of its own, but I'd rather have difficulty from the kinds of enemies more so than the amount. You know what I mean? Plastering this many throughout just feels kind of lazy. Thankfully, there are plenty of power-ups in this area for you to actually get upgrades, and if you did the live grinding in the last stage that I mentioned, it's very possible to get to this stage in relative ease, all things considered. You'll still have a hard time with the enemies, but at least you won't need to restart the stage over and over again. Which does get into something during the boss fight, but we'll mention that when we cross that road. The biggest pain in the ass about this stage, though, isn't the amount of enemies in my eyes, it's the amount of enemies placed dickishly. There are several enemies on top of small platforms or in positions that they will easily knock you off of platforms into the bottomless pits, causing most of your deaths in this stage. It's really stupid, like I probably should have died there, to be honest. My best advice to this point in the stage is to find a sub-weapon that has good range and stick with it. My personal recommendations, and by that I mean the only ones that actually have range, are the Windmill Shuriken and the Upwards Fire attack. That's not called the Fire Wheel. The Fire Wheel is the name of the invincibility attack. I think it might just be called the Flames. Because that range will help you out in the long run. Although that reminds me, one thing I don't think I've mentioned about the sub-weapons yet, even though I may have talked about it briefly back in part 1, is that some of them cost different amounts. Namely, the normal Shuriken only costs 3 Ninpo, whereas everything else costs 5. Which, yeah, that's a thing. I guess the way they wanted to try and make it look different is the color of the sub-weapon would dictate its cost, but there's only one that only costs 3. So that's kind of weird. 2 would fix that by having different sub-weapons cost more or less, depending, and also just having more sub-weapons in general. Oh, how I wish the stage ended there, by the way, because 6-3 is the most dangerous section of a stage in the game. I think overall Stage 5 is the most dangerous, but Stage 6-3 is hell for a few reasons. 1, there's a shitload of enemies, of course. 2, there's a lot of close quarters with enemies. And 3, there's a lot of close quarters with enemies over bottomless pits. The green ninjas from the earlier stages make a return here, and some of them aren't as dangerous as others. Like, I think the one we're about to encounter is actually going to jump directly into a bottomless pit, which is all sorts of stupid. But some of them are a bit more smart in their placement. Hey, have fun with that green guy. This is around the point where I recommend especially starting to have the flames as your sub-weapon, because there's just so many enemies that are above you that it's actually more useful than the Windmill Shuriken, even though I just got it. Time Freeze is thankfully well placed there, so we can get past that green ninja. And I think there's also one in these next 2 areas, but thankfully I moved quick enough to skip past him. One thing I should mention is that I believe the hitbox on Ryu's sword isn't one-to-one with the sprite. I do think you have some extra reach in front of you, just so it's a bit more fair with the way the enemies are behave in this game. I believe this is also the game's last screen. Yeah, you're going to want to be especially careful here. Flames are very good because a lot of enemies, again, will spawn in directly above you. And then this section just gets kind of stupid with the amount of enemies that spawn in. Or rather, the types of enemies that make it very hard to avoid things, not the amount. I suppose it is in a way the amount, just the amount of varieties.
Ryu, you deserve praise for making it this far.
Where are you? Show yourself!
But even you cannot defeat the masked devil.
No one can beat me.
Even your father?
What?
Your father was not killed. He has been turned into the masked devil.
No.
It will be entertaining to watch father and son fight to the death.
Wake up, father.
No use. He thinks only of killing you.
So this is my destiny. Moth was telling the truth. What shall I do? I've got to think clearly. Father's eyes, they show he's controlled like a puppet. If I can break the control... But what's controlling him? That's it! And time for us to fight our father. And as the cutscene pointed out, our goal is not to hit the masked devil himself, but this little orb here on the demon statue. The way you want to go about this fight is hit the orb a few times, jump over the left wall and climb as high as you can to avoid these pellets like this, jump over him, get a few shots in when while he's walking to the right, and then repeat just walking left instead. It's actually the easiest of the final boss gauntlet, because that's what this is. We're fighting 3 bosses in a row, and the annoying thing is, if you die to any of the bosses here in 6-4, you're sent back to the beginning of Stage 6 in total. You know, where we fought Malt and all that? That's stupid! Thankfully, if you kill a boss, they do stay dead at least. Father! Where am I? Ryu. Are you... Ryu? Yes, father.
Ah, he's awake.
The Jaquio!
You both will die.
Watch out! Ugh! Father! Ryu, you've got to get them for me. Father! Your day has come, Jaquio! And time to fight the Jaquio, which I think is the hardest out of these 3 bosses in a row. He only scrolls left to right on the very top of the screen, and he only has 1 attack, which is firing these 2 fireballs that track onto you. The fireballs themselves can be annoying to dodge under the best of circumstances, because while their tracking isn't 1-to-1, you also want to make sure they go off-screen, because as you saw there for a second, he can have multiple volleys of them on-screen at once. In terms of where you have to hit Jaquio, I always forget exactly where it is. I think you have to hit the little weird hexagon thing on his torso, not his legs. And doing so can be kind of annoying, especially because his hitbox is huge in terms of damaging you. In terms of where you have the best chance of dodging him while also damaging him, you want to do it when he's moving away from either the walls from the wall. So like right there. As you can see though, I cut this a bit close. Thankfully, we get a health restore from here. Second, Jaquio. Also, how are you flying? Ryu! Thank God you're safe. Let's go, father. Let's get out of this temple. Ryu, wait. Before we do, the demon statues. We've got to throw them from the temple. While we've still got time. Before the black moon shines. Ryu, what's that? Is it a lunar eclipse? That must be it. That's what the black moon meant. Oh no, the demon statue! Time for the final boss against the demon, which is actually the statue apparently that was in the background. The demon, I think, is the second easiest of the final boss gauntlet, because this is the only attack it has aside from touch damage. You have to take out the head first, which I think is a guaranteed hit on you no matter what. Then you have to take care of the tail, at which point you have to start hitting the little crystal heart thing it has there. It does start getting a bit more erratic with its little energy volleys. The far lower on health it gets, I can start doing bursts like that. And while they all do a lot of damage, overall it's really easy. Again, though, if you die to any of these bosses, I believe you are sent back to the start of 6-1. Wake up, father. Wake up! Ryu, I haven't got much longer. This temple is about to break apart. Take that woman and escape. What are you saying, Father? I can't just leave you! Ryu, you are a man now. My destiny is tied to the demon statue. Ryu, good luck. Father! Father? Father! Ryu. This is Sea Swallow. This is Foster. We detected the explosion from the satellite. Job well done. You are to kill Ryu Hayabusa. What? Kill Ryu? That's right. Then you are to steal the demon statues. So this was your plan all along. I'll get you for this, Foster. Ryu, you... I'll get two kinds of payments. The first I have already received. The second is you, Foster. Ryu, wait! Ryu, what's the payment you've already received? She's right in front of me. I don't even know your name. Irene. Irene Liu. Well, Irene, look. The sun is rising. Everything's so bright now. The darkness is finally over. See? It is an 80s B movie. He even gets a romance with someone he had no chemistry with. Either way, that's the first Ninja Gaiden, and it's a good game, but not one I go back to often. Namely due to the last third of the game, my eyes being a bit too... Ugh. The first 3 stages I can play no issue, stage 4 sometimes, but 5 and 6 are just stages I cannot enjoy due to their difficulty spike, and just overall just... overly ridiculous design. I get that they did that to lengthen the game by difficulty, but that's not a good good design decision in my eyes. Mind you, that's also modern convention speaking with me, so who am I to say? Overall, though, if I go back to a classic Ninja Gaiden game, I am not going back to 1. I'm going back to 2 because while 2's story is garbage, I think the gameplay advancements are enough for it to be a better game in my eyes. But that said, though, if you want to play Ninja Gaiden 1, you're in luck, because there are a lot of ports of this game. It's on the NES, the TurboGrafx 16, the Super Nintendo through the Ninja Gaiden Trilogy, which is basically just Ninja Gaidens 1 through 3 with slightly prettier graphics. And I think it's on all 3 virtual consoles at this point. So there are a lot of ports out there, and I can recommend it. Overall, though, I think the best part of it is the soundtrack. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great night, take care, and I'll see you guys next Let's Play, whatever that may be. See you guys then.